Canada is seeing violent crime like never before. So what is behind the wave of killings and attacks? Tristin published an article April 13th, 2023, stating that untreated mental illness and prolific offenders have left a rising number of Canadians fearing for their safety. One such recent attack was the death of a 17-year-old who was stabbed on a bus in Surrey, BC. This incident occurred just 2 weeks after a 16-year-old was killed in a similar situation in a Toronto subway station. And in the interim have come a host of transit stabbings which didn't make national headlines because the blades missed vital organs. Amid all of the violence is a term that was relatively rare prior to the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, which is unprovoked random attack. It was during the second summer of the COVID-19 pandemic that Vancouver police officers first began noticing a disproportionate number of their calls involving random civilians being punched, pushed, or stabbed for no reason. So there's been an uptick in unprovoked stranger attacks. Chief among this escalation was the killing of 8 on-duty Canadian police officers in just the last 6 months. For context, between 1961 and 2009, a grand total of 133 Canadian officers were murdered in the line of duty, an average of 1 every 4.5 months. These are the 8 officers that have been killed in Canada since September 2022. In parallel with these unprecedented attacks is the Canadian crisis of untreated mental illness. When Canada wrapped up the closure of its centralized psychiatric hospitals in the 1990s, the assumption was that mental illness could be treated in the community with little more than short hospital visits and courses of antipsychotic drugs. Furthermore, we have the issue of Bill C-75, a 2018 suite of amendments to the Criminal Code that, among other things, purported to modernize and clarify the Canadian bail system. The bill required judges to view release without conditions as the default position, whereas previous bail hearings had mostly considered public safety and the accused's likelihood to attend court. Judges would now be mandated to consider whether the suspect was from a vulnerable population. It's not so much that Bill C-75 resulted in more offenders getting bail. Pre-trial detention was always a rare measure for accused offenders. Rather, it's that C-75 utterly gutted the ability of police to punish an offender who refuses to abide by the usual expectations of conditional release. But in addition to the untreated mental illness and release of prolific offenders, we also have a situation that, as a Christian, I think is very important for us to understand, and I might lose some of you here, but that's okay. The situation is we are seeing demonization of the population at an unprecedented level, and it's not just occurring in Canada, it is happening globally. Unfortunately, Bible prophecy has a lot to say about this type of mentality. It will be on the rise until Jesus comes back. So while we can definitely combat it by standing for righteousness and protecting our communities, it's just going to continue to get worse. The most important thing that you can do is protect your family by ensuring they're under the covering protection of Jesus Christ.